most important learning is happening while you're doing and while you're aspiring to grow. You are responsible for your career. The more you build human skills, the more you get better at doing things that AI can't.
This is the CTQ Smartcast, where we have conversations about upleveling, deliberate practice, and getting future relevant.
Hi, I'm Harish, and today I'll be speaking to Srini Addepalli, who is the co-founder and CEO of GlobalGyan Academy of Management Education. GlobalGyan helps professionals build the mindsets and skills of next-gen leadership. So, welcome, Srini.
Thanks, Harish. Great to be here.
Yeah. So first off, I'm going to start off with a slightly easy one. So you worked with the Tatas in various strategy roles for 8 to 10 years. What made you jump into the learning space?
Well, actually, it was more than 10 years, almost 15 years of corporate life. And then I didn't really jump into the learning space. I jumped out of the corporate space. I knew I wanted to do something in teaching. I wanted to be a professor in reality. I mean, there was a childhood somewhere dream that I wanted to be a professor. So I thought I will get into some form of academics or teaching. But then as I explored the space, I loved teaching. I used to teach even when I was working in the corporate world. But then I kind of spent some time looking at what was happening, and I realized that I wanted to not teach in the colleges and in the traditional academic world, but work more with professionals and with adults, and obviously with corporates who employ them to help build their capabilities. So I kind of did a bit of a shift from what I planned when I quit. And yeah, I quit because I just wanted to do something different. So it was not that I was, usually a lot of people quit their jobs or get out of the corporate world, either because they're pissed off, either because, they're unhappy with their jobs and want to get out of being employed, or they want to make lots of money and hope that entrepreneurship will help them make lots of money. For me, I think it was just I knew I wanted to do something in education, and the way I was in my job, even though I got opportunities to dabble with it, I couldn't really do much. And the only way to do something was to get out. And that's why I just, without any plan, I really just said, let me quit first and then I'll figure out what to do.
Right. So, like people say, and Richard Feynman's learning, the best way of learning something is to teach it. So how true is that, in your experience? And
I think there can't be a truer statement. And even, I don't know when Richard Feynman said it, but I remember a shloka that I learned in Sanskrit in school days about how education is the best wealth, because it grows when you give it. When you teach others and when you distribute knowledge, it actually grows for you. So that was almost like one sentence that I read perhaps in my 5th standard, but it has stayed with me all throughout. And my experience has been that. And I tell many of my participants of the learning programs that whether you learn something or not, I will surely learn something from the program. And that has been true, because each time when I engage with a new audience, with a different set of people, just through the questions that they ask, and even if sometimes they don't ask, I imagine that they may have those questions because of who they are. And I try to look for those answers. And there are times when I don't have the answers. And in fact, those are the best times because it actually provokes me to go look for the answers, or to find the answers. I used to find that a lot. Now, while I moved to the adults and the employee professional learning space, but I used to experience it the most when I was in fact teaching in colleges. I used to find that a lot of the students in colleges were somewhat disrespectful and therefore ask questions. which was great because that caused me to look up. I think a lot of adults become too respectful of authority figures and stop asking questions of those who are teaching them, and that stops learning for both.
Right, right. Yeah. So that brings me to the next question that I had. So what is the role of learning in large corporates? We often hear about companies talking about we want to be this continuous learning machine. But are there avenues for learning and teaching, both organized, informal ways? What's your comment on that, especially large corporates?
Yeah. See, I think there's the need for it is huge, okay? Because in reality, learning is happening. That your most important learning is happening while you're doing and while you are aspiring to grow. Therefore, you can't ever have completed your education. You can complete your degrees and so on, by the age of 22 or 25 and start your career, but learning actually starts then, because whatever you did till then was maybe getting some facts, getting certified for what you know, but most of it is not application oriented. The real learning happens when you're in a job. While the need is there, I don't necessarily think that people devote enough time and attention and resources to it. I'm not talking about the individuals. I think organizations realize it, leaders realize it, and therefore they want to invest in it. They would like their managers to invest in learning, both formal and informal, and more informal, because formal has certain limitations. You can only do so many hours of learning through a program, but there's a lot of informal daily learning that one can do. But I haven't seen too many individuals take that very seriously, and I think that's a little bit of I would say a disappointment, or a view that it hasn't been highlighted enough as a huge problem, that people still believe that if I perform well in my current job, if I'm a salesperson, if I achieve my quota, or if I'm a project manager, if I deliver my projects on time, that's enough. That's great. And I will get ahead in my career as a result of it. What they're failing to realize is kind of just the situation that we have seen in the last 6 months, that nobody could predict what was going to happen. No amount of past performance can guarantee your job going ahead, or that you will be able to perform the same level of work now, because the environment has completely changed. And sometimes I believe that we haven't many people haven't faced adversity enough in their careers, in a way, and therefore they don't realize the gap that they're building.
Right. So, what in your opinion are, say, areas that are the most underserved or neglected when it comes to learning in Indian large corporates? Let's restrict it there.
I'll start with what is probably the one of the most evident gap. Okay? It's for me the last step of the learning value chain, but it's also very important because it is what is observed the first when you look at a person and their capability, and also often neglected. And I think that is communication, the ability to engage. And I'm not talking about just speaking grammatically correct sentences and speaking the language, which also is often a gap. But I'm talking about, are you able to express your knowledge, your thoughts, your opinions in a way that the audience, whoever that might be, internal or external, are they able to engage with you? Are they getting influenced by you if that was what you wanted? Are you able to even share information in a simple way so that what you wanted to share is exactly what the other person is able to read? I think there's huge gaps there, and that causes many of the other problems. So you may be capable, but you don't get stuff done because you're just unable to communicate. And the communication gap also leads to, therefore, certain collaboration gaps, other things about managing people, leadership, because ultimately leadership happens through expression. You have to engage with people to exhibit your leadership. So a lot of what I see as weakness in leadership often gets experienced through poor communication. So that's one area where I spend a lot of my time trying to teach. It's not something that I have some huge functional expertise in, but I believe that every leader has to be an expert in communication. And that's something that I spend a lot of time teaching and helping people on. The second area where I see gaps, and particularly I'm talking about more traditional enterprises, but I would say even in the technology or some of the newer age companies, this issue exists, apart from maybe the leaders or the founders, but is just the appreciation of technology. Not in the sense of being a techie, of being able to write the tech or do coding or whatever. Unfortunately, that's the wrong thing is being pushed to people. We're getting 6-year-olds to start writing code, which is not what actually they need to, because if you think about the entire population of people, the percentage of people who write code is not huge. It is important, but it's not the majority of people. Majority of people are users of technology. Majority of people are those who could include technology in whatever they are doing or they're building to make that better. So appreciation of technology, awareness first, and then appreciation of technology, I think is a big gap. And many managers and leaders are years away from even fully utilizing the potential of technology, and which is the reason why sometimes they get disrupted by a startup or a challenger that just knows how to use technology better to do that job. So that's the second thing. The third, and I'm not going to talk about functional skills which each individual needs to build for their own career. Right? I think the third area where I see gaps is what we would call critical thinking, or the ability to connect the dots. Now it may appear that this is a leadership level capability, and that everyone doesn't need to be a strategic thinker or a critical thinker, but that's not the case. All of us, even at the entry level, if you're dealing with customers, if you're dealing with something, you have to think and you have to act. You can't act without thinking. So this ability to think, and there I think the reason why this thinking capability is not so good is because of our tradition of education, and the way we do things is to stop asking questions. So we are taught to be within the framework of a syllabus. If you are in 6th standard, this is what you should learn in mathematics this year. Next year, you will be taught the next level. If you ask questions this year, the teacher will tell you, no, that's next year's syllabus. Why don't you wait? You just focus on this year's syllabus. And whether it's education or edtech, they're all focused on enabling this system that wants to just crack this year's level and go to the next level. What it's doing is that it's making people stop questioning why and what beyond what they're being given. They're just taking what is being given at face value and just mugging it up or solving those problems. But no one's questioning. And then suddenly you reach a middle management level and the boss tells you, think outside the box. All your life you've been told, stay in the box, don't look outside, don't ask questions. And then suddenly they say, be creative. And as if suddenly you turn that switch on, and now from now on you're an innovative thinker and you're a creative guy. It doesn't happen. So I think that's a huge problem that's systemic in nature, both in our the way we grow up, way education, but also the way most organizations, also even corporate cultures, are a bit like that. Some junior person asks, why? Boss will say, why are you asking? Just do what you're told. And then this guy will get promoted, and then a few years later, suddenly you're supposed to have all your bulbs turned on. Doesn't happen. I think this is a huge problem.
Right. Yeah. So one thing that we are not very shy of at Choose to Think is to ask questions, and you know that we are very happy asking quiz questions. So I'm going to ask 3 quiz questions through the course of this conversation, Srini,
Okay.
and there's something at stake. So for every question that you get right, we're going to give you a voucher code for one of our CTQ compounds, and you can use that. So I'll send you the code later once I find out how many questions you get right.
This, this is like, it's been years since I've gotten into this quizzing thing. Now you're going to put me under a lot of pressure. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So the first question for today. So what does the American professor at Yale, Edward Tufte, blame the space shuttle Columbia disaster in 2003 on?
So I don't know the answer. I can only try and guess the answer or just try and arrive at it. Blame the Columbia shuttle failure on.
And let me give you a hint. So this is something that you just referred to a minute or two ago.
Okay.
But you didn't use the exact, word that I'm looking for here.
Okay. Communication signaling failure between the ground station and the shuttle.
Okay, not so you're in the right space. He actually referred to a specific software tool.
Oh, okay. No. So I don't know. I can take a few here and there and guess, but
this is a tool that all of us have used.
Oh, okay. PowerPoint.
Yes, it is. It is the Microsoft PowerPoint. So so the reason for the disaster was some foam that had got that had seeped out of one of the cylinders, and apparently in the build-up, the engineers had actually made a presentation to NASA, and if you look at the slides, it's got a lot of text all over, and the engineers assumed that the message was conveyed, and NASA was just looking for one specific answer, whether this is dangerous or not or something like that, and they didn't get that answer though. So they assumed that everything is good, and they went ahead. So death by PowerPoint can actually be death by PowerPoint. Is the point that Edward Tufte wanted to make there. So, I wanted to, bring this question here, just as a segue to the next question as well, where, you spoke about how communication is so important, and, you're teaching people about making good presentations. While we hear about, artificial intelligence taking away jobs, so what kind of challenges are people facing in the here and now? And what about future relevance? So how do you marry the two? How do you straddle the two? And how bad is this this problem as well of communication?
See, I think the problem with communication, the first big problem with communication, which is both in normal conversations and also therefore it reflects on the slides and everything else, is that most of the time we want to just express ourselves. Okay, communication is seen as, I want to tell you how good I am. I want to tell you all the great work that I have done. This is what I want to tell you. What you want to know, what your concerns are, that is less important to me than just telling you. And in a way, social media kind of thing where you keep broadcasting your ideas, your capabilities to others, and people just keep liking you because that's what you've signed up for. The people who like your post, so you feel very good. That expression is all that matters. The listening part is less important. So I think that's the biggest issue, because most presentations don't care about the audience. They're not thinking, who is my audience? What would be relevant to them? Why should I even say this? So that is I think the biggest problem. So you look at a group meeting or a call happening, everybody is speaking when they get the chance. No one's in fact listening and saying, am I saying something in the context of what others are saying? We all want to make our points, mute ourselves after that, and then wait till my next chance comes to speak, rather than having a true conversation. I think the same thing happens in presentations. So there's a data or a lot of information overload, like you talked about. Why? Because I am not focused on what is the outcome that I want of my communication. I am trying to show off how much work I have done. And since I have this somewhat of a constraint that I have placed in my mind that I shouldn't have too big a presentation, I'll say, okay, I want to make 5 slides. I'll dump as much content as I can in those 5 slides, or whatever. The thing is this necessary? What does the audience want to take? What decision do they want to take? What outcome do I want to influence as a result of this? So obfuscation, either by design, sometimes because I don't know the answer, I'll dump data, or because of ego, this pride about our own work. I think that's the biggest problem, and you can see this across. So what I try to teach people really is not, yes, you can learn about all the the tools of making good slides, the tools of speaking well, and that's all, yes, necessary. But the key thing is focusing on what do I want to achieve from my communication, and being clear that the content that I provide others is relevant to the outcome that I want, particularly in professional communication. Right? Like if you're a NASA engineer, you need to know what was the decision that that committee or who are the seniors who are looking at your presentation, what do they want to do with it? If you're clear about that, then you will focus your content and make sure that that decision is clearly made. That is the problem, and this is where, in fact, this can't be done by artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence or any form of machine learning, data tools can do all the analysis. But what analysis should I do? You can use all kinds of visualization techniques, and now you just put some data, you'll automatically, some engine will throw out some nice charts. The thing is, which chart do I put there? That is a human thing. Knowing my audience. The other thing that we talk about a lot is different individuals have different ways of being persuaded. Some are very logical in their mind. Some are persuaded more through emotion. Now, if I don't know that person well enough and I use the wrong communication content, I'll fail. Now, I don't think any at least an AI or anything that exists today can know the people who I'm speaking to, each of them. So I do believe there's a huge human intelligence role in communication, and that, as I said earlier, that's the expression of all our work. So you could be extremely intelligent, you could have all the capabilities, but if you fail at communication, everything fails, because that's how you are perceived as who you are.
Right. And is there a so there are two different levels of problems that we're talking about. One is communication, which is I guess a very timeless thing, but because people are trying to fix a very fundamental issue which should have never been an issue in the first place. Yeah. Is there a danger of not paying enough attention to something else, which is all this AI coming and taking away your jobs, or automation making you redundant? Is there a danger of people not being able to pay attention to that? Or also some people are so focused on that part where they miss this fundamental thing. So is there a challenge? Because I see this as two very different levels of threats, if you may.
Yeah, see, the thing is that more you build human skills, more you get better at doing things that AI can't. Better is your defense against AI.
Correct.
So let's go back to that other point about asking questions and connecting the dots. More, yes, AI and all of these technologies can bring lots of data together and process them very quickly and come up with analysis. But the design of that, the design of that ultimately has to come from humans. Now I'm sure at some point the technology will reach those levels where they mimic the impulses and the intuition that today humans have. But how do you build intuition? How do you bring that emotion into decision making? Today the problem is that humans are not doing the human things. They are trying to be like computers by treating management as a science, by treating management as an analytical capability, by just doing data and taking decisions only analytically. I think we're undermining ourselves as human leaders, human people. And just yesterday or 2 days ago, I was having a conversation about decision making, and all the leaders and managers that I talk to, they all use only logic to get to their decisions, or gut, which is really a form of logic, which is that I don't even want to do the analysis. I will use my past experience to do it. Right? So it's there's logic short circuited, or even in their communication, it's all fact based. There is no tone. There's no emotion when you hear their presentations. You feel like actually today's robots and some of the text to voice converters give better audio than some of the human presentations that I hear. So as humans, we are undermining ourselves. The fact that we can bring intuition, intelligence, we can bring emotion that connect with people to our decision making, to the way we do things. If we compete with the robots, they're better at being robots than we will ever be, right? So I think that's a bigger problem. So which is also goes back to the kind of skills and capabilities that I like to work on are all the so-called softer skills. And by calling them soft skills, I think the corporates and everyone has undermined those skills as if they were the optional things to do, and as if the hard skills of knowing how to deal with data or how to do planning and project management, those are the necessary skills. The problem is that those are the skills that can be easily replaced because they are the so-called hard skills. They can be put into an algorithm much faster than the softer skills. So if we have to, in fact, make a choice between which skills should humans be investing in, not necessarily for the immediate 3 months or the next 1 year, but if you are thinking about this bigger problem that in future, do humans have a role to play? Is there job opportunities for them? Yes, there will be job opportunities if they invest in the human skills,
right.
which today are undermined.
We need to play to our strengths.
Yeah. And at that time, maybe I read this interesting article from getting where, but it talked about maybe there will be very few jobs left 20 years later, but because of the way the economy has reshaped itself, people will earn enough to enjoy life. Even those who don't have jobs or have very they won't need to do jobs and they can enjoy life because everything will be done at a much lower cost by machines than today it is done. So even your low level of wealth could be enough to lead a much better life than what you do today. So yeah, I'm not really worried about this AI versus human as a bigger issue of will the human race get ended by the robots, or will Terminators take over? Right? I think the thing is that if we want to be the people who are designing the future of business, if we are the ones who want to lead organizations, teams, then we have to invest in the skills that make us those leaders.
Right. Yeah, I think Rory Sutherland, who's written books like Alchemy and who's the head of Ogilvy in UK. I think he makes this great point about businesses just refusing to go with an emotional. The role of emotion is so neglected in decision making, and when they're coming up with new ideas, he actually says that if you've run out of your standard go-to ideas, you should go with the most left of field idea, because there's a better chance of that working for you.
Yeah. And I would have hoped, and I think that Indians as a just as because of our culture and because of our exposure to a lot many languages and so many cultures even within our own country. Each of our cities, each of our organizations is really like a global mix of people. So our ability, and this has been proven by many Indian leaders and managers succeeding at global levels. And why is that? Because ability to deal with adversity, whether you call it jugad or whether you call it, kind of quick innovation, but this ability to deal with adversity and solve problems to get ahead, dealing with a wide variety of opinions, behaviors, cultures, languages that we grow up with almost as a default. None of us are surprised when we hear 3 different languages being spoken around us in a cafeteria. That's part of how we've grown. Maybe even in the same family, you'll find 2 or 3 languages being spoken within the family. So that's so normal to us, and therefore I think we are actually in a better place to be able to deal with these kind of issues. I think we are somewhat aping that everything is a science approach to dealing with problems. That there are better ways of dealing with problems which are human ways.
Yeah. So what do you think is missing in, say, our business schools and corporate environment from a learning point of view? What is missing?
I think Professor Ghoshal, late Professor Ghoshal, he wrote this one paper which I read only recently, just a few years ago. But I think it's such a powerful paper where he kind of looks at management as a space of education and points out that this whole trying to make it into a science is one of the biggest issues, and therefore in pursuit of only value maximization from a profit perspective and measuring ourselves only through KPIs that are extremely machine oriented versus forgetting about the role of humans in decision making, the importance of values and culture in decision making, ethics, I think has caused a lot of the problems that we have seen in the corporate world in the US many years ago, and many examples in India also, right, where we have seen failure. But I do believe Indian organizations should be better placed to deal with with this. Management education, I think, is clearly at fault. I think the way the MBA program, which is the flagship program for all corporate, preparing people for corporate jobs and leadership jobs, I think the MBA program was designed for an industrial world, which was extremely factory led, which was extremely process and hierarchy led industrial world. The very fact that B schools are organized along functions. So you have strategy function, marketing function, operations function, human resources function, actually mimic the siloed nature of how organizations were 50 years ago. Today, organizations want to move away from that. And organizations are trying to be more networked. They're trying to bring a lot of agility into the way they do things. They're breaking these silos. But the MBA program still tells you to specialize in HR and to specialize in marketing or operations. So I think the problem starts there. I think the MBA program and it's a little bit of a controversial statement. It may, because I occasionally do teach sometimes in the MBA programs as a guest faculty, and I know a lot of great people who teach in MBA programs, but I think the MBA program needs to die before it can be redesigned. Whatever attempts have been made to kind of tweak the MBA program have been similar to how organizations have tried to tweak their structures to bring innovation and agility and have failed, because if structurally, if you're siloed and hierarchical, you will end up with a culture that's like that. So I think that's the first change, and it will then take a few generations of new sets of managers to be produced from such schools. I think the MBA program, in a way, both because of the structure of the learning, but also the very fact that it tries to teach the entirety of management capability in 2 years' time, is again flawed. You have to learn these capabilities over the course of the subsequent 20 years or 30 years of your career. Nobody remembers what was taught in that MBA program for 2 years, way back when you were a kid. So why is the MBA program still at the beginning of one's career? Yes, there are some exec programs where people do it again. Again, it's a one whole year. It's not designed to mimic the need for learning. It is designed to be convenient. That get everybody into a campus for a year or 2 years and teach them everything that they may ever need to learn, and then send them out. That's convenience. That's not designed to actually be meaningful to individuals and to organizations. So I would say, if I had to change one thing that could change all of this, I would say, kill the MBA program and build it all afresh.
Right. Yeah. In fact, we use this term called full stack employees. Usually people who join startups, the initial group of people are people who will do everything. They and the founders are at a certain level. But again, as these companies start growing, then they start hiring for different functions, and then they start doing this. They have these complaints that these people are not networking with the others, and they are in their own groups and all of that. In fact, somebody who worked in a startup once told me that there's this class of citizens who are working in a startup that has grown, because the initial group of people are those who would do everything from operations to marketing to product to sales to facilities. They're okay to do anything and have delivered. And the next set of people are the ones, organizations are trying to be more formal and, think function wise.
See, Harish, that's going to be the reality, right? In order to scale, organizations will need to get some degree of specialization, some degree of delegation.
Right.
Accountability will have to be driven. So a startup can't remain a startup forever. Although in India, many companies that were started 20 years ago are also still called startups. I mean, they're enterprises as big as any other enterprise. From an employment revenue perspective, they have to become enterprises. That should be the goal of every startup, to become an enterprise that can last decades or a century if necessary. So that will require organizations to be restructured for certain functional competencies to be built. But even if you think about those full stack people, the leaders, if you just think about a leadership team in any large enterprise, is like a full stack employee. They may have some direct responsibility for some function, but they are ultimately leaders of that organization. They should be able to do everything at any time. But there are only a few of those. But you can build that mindset across many of them.
Right.
And I think that shift, if you want to make, that there will be some full stack employees, but there can be a full stack mindset in addition to the specialization. So you have your specialization, you do your day job, but your mindset that you're building is to eventually become that full stack employee. Not everyone can become that full stack employee. I think there's a certain capability, competency that is necessary for it. If everybody could, then life would be very different. So I do believe that, in fact, therefore, you really need people who can do some job and they're learning to do the next job and building the full stack mindset as they grow. And maybe in 10 years, everyone then becomes like a full stack employee at 10, 12, whatever, from when they get out of some college.
Right.
I don't have an answer to what should be the structure of this, but I do believe that tinkering with what we currently have is not yielding any of the change that we would like to see. And it's been too long. I think this is, at least since 2000, we know that this is the reality of how businesses will work. But I have not seen management education structurally change much. And partly because it's regulated. Right? Regulations are used by incumbents to prevent change. And the education system in India is, and not just in India, world over, uses regulation to prevent challenges. Clayton Christensen wrote about how education has been most resilient to disruption, while it should technically have been disrupted long ago, but it has proven highly resilient. I'm talking about higher education, university education. In fact, he's written a lot about disruption and the application of the disruption model to education, and said it has failed there because incumbents have used their brand power of the past and their degree granting capability to prevent challengers coming into the space.
Right. So, in fact, since you mentioned, Clayton Christensen, what do you think is the job of these higher education, institutes right now, and what should the job be in the job to be done parlance of Christensen?
Yeah. So, I think of the need for education, or the need for the education system as just think about, let's start with the customer, right? With this individual. Forget the system. I don't want to define the system based on the system. Let's look at the individual who is the customer of that system, the person who gets into college after the 12th standard. Why do people go to any of these colleges? A majority of them are using it as a means to get an employment, an appropriate employment that will pay them for the investment that they're making, the investment of their brain power, and then the money that they're ready to invest into that education. And they would like to get the maximum ROI, and therefore they choose the investment that so-called gives the maximum ROI. That's why the MBA, that's why the medical, the top IITs are all, people are rushing for them and they're investing heavily into getting there through all the coaching and everything that they do, because they seem to have the highest ROI. But so you really think about it, nobody goes to college because they want to learn that topic. People are investing. It's like buying a stock that gives me the best ROI. So if we first of all make the understanding that the market for higher education is actually a market for career building and getting them jobs, then you start to rethink. You say, why do you need higher education? It's not higher education. It's actually placement. It's you're building great placement schools. So now you can redesign the entire program itself to say, what is it that will get you the best job? Okay, what should you learn so that do you need to therefore spend 3 or 4 years or 5 years in doing this? Could you do this in 2 years perhaps and be ready for the job and start earning faster? So I think that's the first lens I would use for a majority of people.
Right.
There are a few who want to learn, who want to build knowledge, right? And they want to learn because they want to create knowledge. So they don't want to just use the knowledge to get employment. They want to actually build. Right? They are the researchers. They would like to build new technology. They would like to build new theories. They would like to create art. They're creators. Okay? I think they obviously need the kind of higher education system that we today are seemingly creating. The top universities in India or worldwide, they probably make sense, because those who go there, I'm not saying those who go to the IITs want to become the creators of technology. Most of them don't, but there will probably be some who want to do that. I think you need to create the higher education system for them separately. That's a different system for those who want to learn, teach, build new knowledge. Now come back to this person who graduated from high school, did some learning, career-oriented learning, and started working. Okay? Now this person needs ongoing learning, depending on the kind of careers they want to build. They probably would also, I think it's useful to now think of a continuing university, okay, which gives you access to a set of electives that you keep choosing. Every year you have to finish 5 electives or 4 electives that you have to do in a functional area. Maybe this is the best time to teach them about things that they may not have learned. Philosophy, perhaps, as you grow a little older, maybe you need to learn a little bit about psychology and philosophy, even though your job is of a sales guy. But if you don't understand psychology, how do you understand thinking about a customer? If you want to, when we teach leadership, there's a lot of work in leadership, and organizational behavior comes from psychology. None of us have ever learned psychology, but we are applying the outcomes of psychology into the work that we do as leaders. Maybe you need to be exposed to that. So as you keep growing, you get exposed to, I think, a wider range of topics that open your mind, make you a little more as a human being. Maybe arts. I keep talking about how building creativity needs you to experiment with arts. If you don't do something in the arts space, how will you can't suddenly sit in a conference room and tell people come up with 4 creative ideas for our product problem. You need to indulge their creativity through other things like hobbies and arts. So I think that's the education system for them. Those who are pursuing a career path need a certain type of ongoing learning. I think that's how you should design the future of education system. But the problem is, like all change to the education system is incremental in nature. We start with what we have currently, and we think about, can we change the syllabus a bit? Can we change 4-year program to 5-year program, or 3-year to 4-year? It's all incremental change. No one's kind of saying, just assume there's nothing exists. If you had to redesign education all over again, what would you do?
Right.
That is needed, I believe.
Yeah. Nice. We'll get to the next quiz question, Srini. So in Jainism, what are these the 5 types of? Okay. So Kevala, Shrut, Mati, Avadhi, and Manopriya.
Say them. Repeat the
Kevala, Shrut, Mati, Avadhi, and Manopriya. And the word we are looking for shares its roots with the word no.
I thought they were the senses. It felt like the 5 senses. Shruti sounds like hearing to me, and Mati feels like mental knowledge, right? Okay. So yeah, maybe the senses, or
looking for a word which is very closely associated with you.
Knowledge, management, knowledge.
So give me a word. I wouldn't. Jainism wouldn't use the word knowledge.
Okay. Gyan.
Yes, it is Gyan. So yeah, nice. In fact, the next question that I had was something which you referred to earlier as well. So do you see individuals taking charge of their learning instead of waiting for the employer to do it for them? Are they seeking Gyan? Are they looking at learning as a serious contributor to their growth in careers, and they need to take charge of their careers? Is that something that you see? Is that something
that's an exception, not the norm?
It's an exception.
Individuals don't. As a majority are not taking charge of learning. They're not even taking charge of their careers. I think they're all expecting that it is the responsibility of someone else. The only thing that individuals do take charge of is to get better certifications, because if it goes back to the purpose of education. Right? Purpose of education is to get a better certificate, a more recognized certificate. Whether that certificate really did it change my learning or not doesn't matter so much to me. Now, potentially that certificate, because someone else is willing to recognize it, may at some point have had a meaning. But today, I think it is a pursuit of certification rather than the pursuit of learning. And in some ways, if you just think about it, organizations have always taken responsibility for learning. You join your job, you stop. Your HR people send you to training programs. Your boss tells you, "Here's what you need to learn." So it's become a habit that somebody else will do it for us. Why should I spend on it? Why should I take care? And the issue with that, and I think the danger with that is, in some ways, the responsibility for oneself as a career, as who I am, has been given away to the HR. I need to get promoted. My boss has to promote me. It's the HR who is not promoting me. So it's easy to find excuses of why my career hasn't grown. And therefore, I will go quit my job and find someone else who I believe may be willing to give it to me. A lot of people crib about their bosses, but if you just think about how much effort do they put into their careers, and I'm not saying this just anecdotally. I have, in the last 7 years, since I've been into this learning space, corporate learning space, I've met face to face and spoken with thousands of managers. I've met more people in this part of my career than in my proper corporate career, and not just met them. I've been, people speak to me because I'm not a boss. I'm not someone they have to be scared of. So I'm just a teacher. I'm a mentor. So the people do open up and speak a lot. And there very few of them. There are. I'm not denying. There's probably maybe 5 to 10%, and depending on the organization, that percentage may vary. But it's a small percentage of people who actually reach out with clarity on why they want to learn, what they want to do in terms of their career. And for me, the reason I think is a danger is this idea of this gig economy. Now, if in the gig economy, you are responsible for your career, no one's going to give you business. You want to be a freelancer, you have to be responsible. But the issue is that not just you quit your job and become a freelancer. I think many corporates are going to start employing the principles of the gig economy into the way they think about their organization structure. If companies move into more networked organizations, hybrid teams as a structure rather than hierarchical and functional jobs, there will be a need for people to be multifunctional in nature. There'll be a need for people to move from one project to another, and therefore sell themselves as a product, as a talent available to be chosen for the next big project. Here's the funny thing. Imagine you are the product. In the employment market, in the talent market, each of us as an employee or an individual is a product selling our time to the employer. And who invests in the product development? Customer. You are telling the customer, you are responsible for my improvement. My product will improve only because you train me. And by the way, you pay me extra every year. You have to give me an increment. You train me and then you give me more because you have trained me. Can you see the? If in a normal sales and marketing sense, you would laugh at this and say, this is like a company saying, "Oh, my soap is this. By the way, you please invest in my R&D to make the soap better, and then next year I'll increase the price of the soap." That's not how it works. So if we have to start thinking of ourselves as individuals as being part of the talent market, then we have to shine in that market. And I don't think individuals are investing sufficiently in it. That's
yeah. You mentioned the gig economy. I think that's a great, factor that is going to have a very big role to play, because organizations are now waking up to the fact that, they can hire these freelancers for, these project stints, this Hollywood kind of ensemble cast, for a particular project. They're fine with it, and they don't need to really own an employee's time, 8 hours, 9 hours in a day, as long as they are getting the outputs. Organizations are waking up to that and getting wiser about that. But probably employees are still not uh, understanding the threat of things like gig economy, how it is going to have a direct impact on their career. So do you see any other such threats which are in and around, which are going to have a similar effect like what you mentioned about gig economy?
I mean, if you just take the gig economy, because what has been now happening in the corona times of remote working. Uh, See, earlier, this full-time employment had this whole sense of, people come to an office, sit there from morning to evening, or that you needed that employee to be in front of you. You manage the work based on their presence at the office. We've been forced to change that. Even the organizations that were completely not familiar with remote working and tech have had to figure out how to manage teams remotely, how to manage based on output rather than presence. Because you don't know, you're not putting a camera, although some companies I think did it, but you're not putting a camera on and seeing what this individual is doing all day. You're just saying, I need this output, this is what you're supposed to do, get it done for me. The moment measurement of work moves to output rather than time spent at the office, you're in a gig economy.
Yeah.
Because the gig economy is really about output based pricing rather than time based. You're not selling time, you're selling an output. That's what the gig economy is selling. The second thing, this danger, is you don't have to be in the same city or in the same country as the office used to be. Earlier, your presence in that city, okay, gave you an advantage. Your competitive advantage was that you could show up to the office. Someone sitting in a smaller town had to migrate and bear the investment of the higher cost of living there and the risk of living there to participate in that job market. So the job market had its own limitations. Today, in a remote virtual work environment space, you're competing with everyone who has similar capabilities and can deliver the same outcome from wherever they are. I was talking to a small business, he's into digital marketing and so on. So just chatting. He's based in Indore. And we were chatting about, he said, I have a small team and I'm expanding, I'm hiring a few people. And because I was talking about doing some work with him, I said, oh, okay, where are your people? Are they all in Indore, along with you? He said, no, a couple of them are here, and then 2-3 others were in, I think, other parts of MP. I said, 2 of them are in Vietnam. I was like, oh, okay, maybe there. I thought that some specialist is just outsourcing some work to them. I said, are they on contract or do you just outsource excess work to them? He said, no, they're my employees. It's just that they're in Vietnam. I was like, oh, no, if a small business can realize that he's getting a better deal of employing people in Vietnam for work that could have been done by Indians. It was not some high-tech stuff that had to be outsourced there. For him, the whole equation worked out. But it opened my eyes to the fact that your competition for jobs is not going to be limited to the physical geographies in which jobs were being created in the past.
Right.
I think these two things, measurement by outcome and remote delivery of work, changes the competitive market of talent is going to be reshaped in the next 2-3 years.
Right. Yeah. So, how should people be thinking about their learning? Should they set something like learning goals for the year? How do they identify blind spots? Because that's something where the L&D actually comes in, where they are like the third party who will say this is what you need to build. But if an individual is trying to take charge of their learning, how should they go about it?
I mean, you can still get feedback and an evaluation from your boss, from your L&D, from your customer if you're a freelancer. I think the first thing is that you have to seek that feedback. You have to want to know what I am not so good at. I wrote this article a few weeks ago about do you need a slap in the face? The part of, I think, the corporate culture has been that we have stopped identifying weaknesses and gaps. About 20 years ago, I think this term opportunity for improvement came up. So we started soft pedaling on weaknesses as something to just kind of say, obviously, you have some strengths, you have weaknesses. It's okay. It's fine. But we want it to be very nice and you don't want to hurt people. So we said opportunities for improvement. And the problem is that the recipient says, oh, no, that is opportunity for improvement. I can see a lot of strengths, but no weakness. So it's very good. I think the flip side of all this is that over the years, people have stopped getting true feedback about where they lack, what the gaps are, what they need to do to get better. And this is where, one, you have to seek feedback. You have to have the openness and the humility in a way to want to know what do I need to learn. And the best way is to get it from your mentors, your bosses, people who have grown, not necessarily one person, but get it from a few people who can take different perspectives and give you that feedback. I think it is important that you have to seek that feedback and not wait for anyone. I think there is a gap. There's a market opportunity in a sense for truly objective evaluation of capabilities, which people actually pay for to know what they're good at and what they aren't good at. There isn't any way today that you can get some reasonably good feedback. There are very non-scalable systems that are used by corporates, including appraisals and assessment centers and all types of psychometric tests, etc. But each of them are fragmented in nature and in general non-scalable. They don't give a comprehensive view of how good a person is vis-a-vis their current job, vis-a-vis their aspirations of where they want to be. I think that's an opportunity in a way. So I would say somebody should or somebody will build that system to help individuals. But till then, I think the best way is to get feedback. If you have the capacity, some do, to do a lot of self-assessment, introspection, I think that obviously work. The third is, I would say don't try to fill some weakness or know what your learning agenda is. Keep learning. Say I want to spend so many hours learning. Whatever learning opportunities I get in whichever area, just do it. I think that's a great first step, because when you start learning, you get evaluated, because you get benchmarked. You see other learners. You get to get a feel for, this topic I seem to be pretty good. Okay, great. I stop my learning there and move on to something else. But you have to just start learning. So I would say don't try to create some agenda. The only goal you should do is how many hours of time do I invest in learning, and make sure that learning is in fact a little diverse. So that would be my recommendation. Just set a goal for learning for a year, for a month, for a quarter, and try and do as much eclectic learning as possible, rather than being very focused on learning goals. Just say, I learn. Go to Coursera, pick up 2 courses and just do them. It doesn't matter that they have to have any connection to what you want to do. Just because as you learn, you will discover that this seems to interest me or not, and then you can decide. Many of these are free, so you don't even have to invest much. Your time is actually your bigger investment, not the money. Although I have found people have inversed this. People are ready to spend time, but not the money. Whereas the more valuable thing for them is the time.
Right.
Money is trivial,
Yeah.
given what they earn and given the earning potential of learning. So I see a lot of people randomly joining sessions that may not have any meaning, but they'll just join those because it's free. And someone charges something, no, I don't want to join that, even though that may be a better investment of the 2 hours that you're taking or 3 hours. So I think that's my suggestion.
And what all would you consider under those learning opportunities? So courses is one thing. What else do you recommend that people can pick up easily as a way of learning?
So I talk about learning that comes obviously from formal learning, like taking a course, attending a program, a webinar, physical, whatever. The second learning happens through reading, right? Through someone else's experiences, which is a bit like a formal learning, but it doesn't have to be more so systematic as a formal learning program. Which means keep reading about things. Again, eclectic, diverse set of reading, because in a way, each time you're reading, your mind is being provoked to think about it and see how you can apply it to your situation. But I would say the best form of learning is to do things. So take on projects that are not part of your job, and those projects will not be your workplace, some special project. It could just be think of an idea and say, can I build something? Do some projects. If you have kids, do projects with them. Think of oh, Diwali is coming. Can I create some activity and sell in my building complex a product? Try to force yourself to do things that are not normal. They may be crazy, and in fact, very likely those crazy ideas won't come to you. So most likely the crazy ideas will come to kids. So that's why I said, often join a kid who is trying to do something crazy. Great learning opportunity. Hobbies are a great learning opportunity because they get you to learn new skills, but equally, particularly if they're team or people related sports or something, you get to meet people. So I do recommend investing in time in doing hobbies, which are the doing types, where you do stuff. Finally, I think there is just through observation. I go to a mall. I don't just be. At least for some time, I'm just looking around, looking at the shops and thinking about what is happening. So bring a little bit of that inquisitiveness is a great form of learning, because you're now learning on your own. You're trying to create a problem for yourself. You're trying to find the data for yourself. So go to the mall and say, okay, can I estimate what is the percentage decline in number of shoppers from before Corona and now? Try and solve that problem. Just by spending an hour in the mall, where will you get the data? Who will you ask? Can you get some anecdote plus some sample data to help you solve that problem? So I think it's you need to have that bent of mind, or you need to create that bent of mind, but create problems or projects for yourself that you can then go and solve. That's the best way to learn, because there's no better way to learn than when you challenge yourself and create the whole learning process for yourself.
Yeah, I think the big message for me is get out of your comfort zone.
Yes,
Yes.
Don't do more of what you're great at.
Correct.
Because there's a limit to how much more you can improve there.
Right.
I'm not stopping. There's probably a lot of improvement possibility there, but don't invest all your time there.
Right.
Give enough time to things that are not normal, not usual for you.
This is the CTQ Smartcast, where we have conversations about up-leveling, deliberate practice, and getting future relevant.
All right. Welcome back, Srini. So before the break, you were talking about coaching and mentoring. So that was a question that I wanted to ask you anyway. So how should people go about seeking coaches and mentors? And these are not the mentors and coaches that an organization gets for you after you reach a certain level. but anyone, like you said, is always looking for coaching and mentors, should be looking for them. By default, it, I think, happens to be the boss in most cases.
Yeah.
Even with a boss, how do you get more out of a boss from a coaching perspective? And if not from the boss, if you need someone else, how should one go about that?
So, the boss is often could be the best mentor and a coach for any individual. That's how it ought to be. But the reality is that most bosses are not good mentors themselves. Either because they don't have the time for it, or they don't have the capacity for it. And many aren't. Being a good mentor or a good coach is not for everyone, just like being a good salesperson is not for everyone. It's a capability. But it's assumed that just because you're a manager and you have some people to manage, you also can do mentoring and coaching. It's not. It is something that is a special skill. Yes, everybody can build some of it, but if you're really looking for the best in class, then you have to go to the best in class. So I think on an ongoing basis, yes, your boss should be your first place you're learning from. But there's a limitation to what you can learn from your boss. I think if you want to get mentored or coached, first you have to want it. I think there is that explicit thought has to come to your mind that I need somebody to teach me. I think the biggest problem that most people have is that they don't believe that somebody else can teach them anything. They're always thinking, actually, I should be in my boss's shoes. Just the office politics that has kept me here. No, unless you're willing to accept that I need to do something about where I am, you will not seek mentoring and coaching. So I think that's why a lot of people don't actually seek mentoring and coaching, because they don't believe that something is missing in their own capability that they need to invest that. Apart from your boss and any other mentors that most corporates give, and most corporate mentoring programs fail. There are very few success stories of mentoring programs that have worked within the corporate world. So I think individuals who are looking for mentoring, good quality mentoring, have to seek it themselves. And therefore, they may have to pay for it if necessary. Because if you're going to push the envelope on how much you want from that mentoring, then you have to seek professional help and pay for it. So if you want to be mentored by someone, there are a lot of people who are capable of and would be interested in providing mentoring. And I've seen that happening when people have reached out to me. So sometimes people reach out to me on LinkedIn or through any other network, and then they connect with me and say, no, I would like to be mentored by you. The funny thing is, most of them will ask that, and I'll ask them a few questions, and I'll say, happy to have a conversation, and here's what. And most of the time they don't get back. And so I mean, I'm not asking them questions about how much are you ready to pay me or anything like that. It's usually, what do you want to do with your life? What is the point of this? What do you want to gain out of this? Most of them don't follow up. So then I feel that they're just paying lip service. Someone must have told them that you need a mentor, so they kind of approach, and then they don't have the time for it.
Right.
They believe they're too busy for it. So they forget that the mentor may be even busier. And so in a way, if you don't want to invest the time, then the mentor, whoever that is, will not invest. So I do think that if you want mentoring, you have to want it, and you have to invest the time first, your energy. Then it may lead to money as the next step later. But most mentors, most mid to senior level managers and entrepreneurs, if you reach out to them well, with the right communication, I think many of them would be ready to offer mentoring. The third thing I'd like to say on this is that you don't need to have one mentor. In life, you can have many mentors, and you can learn from different people. In fact, if you have the capability to attract many mentors, many people who are invested in you, who feel that you are worth their time. Because most of the time what they charge you, anyone, even if they charged professionally, will never be worth what they could do with that time. Because for mentoring, no, I'm not come across too many people who charge at all, or even if they charge the opportunity cost of their time. The reason why most people agree to do mentoring is because they actually feel invested in the mentee. They feel that this person has the potential for certain growth or opportunity, and therefore want to play a role in making that happen. That's the true mentor. uh, and I don't see enough people making use of that opportunity. Many times your teachers could be your former teachers could be your mentors. My prof at IMA, when I got into this education space and quit and joined, I was not in touch with him for a long time, but one of my profs, I knew he was around, and he was also doing consulting and coaching. I reached out to him and asked him for help and had some conversations with him. Today, he's my biggest source of learning, knowledge, constantly advising. Yes, there is some stuff we do commercially together, but that's almost trivial to the time that he spends, the energy he spends in what I am doing or my organization is doing. I think that's like a lot of examples like that. So your profs, your teachers, many times they just want to feel they I think the greatest joy for a mentor or a teacher is when the person you have coached excels and does great things. So that's the energy that you have to be able to tap into, which means that you have to energize them with your ideas. You have to take the lead, by asking them good questions, by pushing them to think about that you're worth them kind of stretching their brains or their networks, to get you solutions. But you have to excite them.
Right. Yeah. And I'm thinking that when you're saying this, everyone should also be open to mentoring others, sort of as a way of giving it back, because you have benefited from, formal or informal coaching and mentoring.
Yeah. And in that sense, everyone can be a mentor, right? So everyone has some capability. You may not be able to make that a career, or you may not make that a big part of your life, but I'm sure everybody has certain knowledge, connections,
Right.
perspectives, just their experience that they can give back. And this is one thing that I think managers, because we are not taught how to learn properly in our school and college days, we therefore don't know how to teach. Okay? Most people don't know how to teach. Because the essence of teaching or helping someone else to learn through mentoring or training, whichever mode it may be, is not to just share experiences. Okay? See, our real best learning is not what we have learned in books. Because what you have learned in the book, someone else can read the same book and learn. So that's why most teachers who are teaching from the textbooks are of no use. They're just they're almost like facilitators. They're the they play a role. I'm not denying that, but they're not really helping learning to happen. They're just passing on knowledge from someone else to the other person. But real learning happens when you are able to draw from your own experiences and create new learning, right? And something that others can emulate, others can use to build on. The issue is that most of the time, many managers who look back at their experiences only do experience sharing. They are unable to convert those experiences into learnings that can be replicated. Your experience, when you share that story with me, cannot be used by me, because I will not face the same circumstances and the same situation that you did. You told me what you did when something happened. I don't learn from it. I get interested. That's why a lot of learning, so-called learning videos by leaders. So you have these leaders speak videos. They're not really learning videos. They are storytelling videos. They can inspire you a bit. They can make you think a bit for a while, but usually that doesn't last long. You feel very inspired, energized, positive when you're watching those videos, but very soon after, it has no effect on what you do, because most of them have just told their stories.
Right.
The few of them who are good will not only tell you a story, but will convert that story into what I call an algorithm or a framework. Okay? The problem is that most leaders have this grina against theory. You know? They feel that, no, it's all my own learning. Therefore, this idea of theory, you know, is something they just dismiss. But there's a reason why theories exist, and particularly in management, they're not even theories. They're not like science theories. They're algorithms. They're, if A, B, C happened, then X is the most likely option to pursue if A, B, and C are there. Right. But if A, B, and D are there, then do Y. That's a framework. Right? And that comes from me having tried A, B, C, D many times, failed at it. I have figured out that in this situation X seems to work, and in this situation Y seems to work. But if I just tell the story of when X worked or when Y worked without sharing this framework, the listener can't do anything with it. The listener needs to be given that framework so that when they see A, B, and C happening, they can connect it and say, oh, no, now A, B, and C are happening. Let me try X.
Right.
That is the power of being able to create theory, right? Or create framework. And that's where it becomes from experience sharing to creation of learning. And that's the capability that a lot of managers don't have.
Right.
Which is why they can't be good mentors. Because they can only tell you, so they'll tell you, tell me what happened, I'll tell you the answer.
Correct.
They'll tell you what to do, but they can't help you think what to do. Right. They can't guide you to the answer by giving you a framework. Yeah. If they give you a framework, you can use it again and again. You don't have to come back to the mentor. The mentor also has, therefore, the confidence and the courage to not be wanted again.
Make themselves redundant as time goes by.
That is the purpose of a good teacher, right? To make yourself redundant. Bosses don't want to make themselves redundant. They want to keep their jobs, no? So the traditional boss, the traditional manager actually doesn't want to become redundant. That is why learning doesn't happen in organizations.
Correct. Yeah. And how do you think organizations, and now in the case of coaching and mentoring individuals, how should they be thinking about the so-called return on investment on learning? Should they even be thinking, is that a metric that people should even consider?
Yeah, I mean, so this ROI on learning or ROI on corporate training, in a way, a few years ago, became a big thing in the corporate world, in the L&D. Everybody started measuring. Again, trying to convert management into a science. Right? So we want everything to be measurable. All this smart. There are places where it makes sense, and there are places it doesn't make sense. The learning is one of those things. So if you want to take learning through an ROI lens, that's when you get certification. That's when you get, if I spend so much to go to a coaching class over there, the chances of me getting a seat in the IIT increase to so much. And, I'm doing a probability analysis and doing a trade-off analysis. That's the ROI mindset of learning. You're not learning. I think a learning mindset says, I want to invest, or I can invest so much time from amongst all the pool of time that I have. The biggest resource we have is time. So investment is less about the money in my view when it comes to learning. It's about the time, because if you put an opportunity cost to your time, what they charge you per hour of learning will be very small compared to the opportunity cost of your time. Right? And therefore, even if you have to pay for that hour of learning to a third party to teach you, that's trivial, because you'd rather not spend that hour than worry about, should I pay X for that training program for that hour, right? So the investment is time, and the only way to think about it is, this is an investment that I'm going to make because I can make this investment.
Right.
The a lot of time the effect of it is felt only through hindsight. It's a bit like, and I think this is where what Steve Jobs said at that famous commencement address, that sometimes the investment that you make in experiences, in learning, you can't look ahead and plan it out. You can only look back and connect the dots and say, that is why I was able to do this. He gives the example of the ability to create beautiful fonts on the Mac platform because he took calligraphy courses, while it had nothing when he had dropped out of college and he was doing these courses. So if one could say, what were you doing? Why were you wasting your time doing calligraphy? You were interested in computers and all that stuff, right? Why calligraphy? But that he realized much later the impact it had on the way he was thinking and the way he thought about design. So that's exactly how we should think about learning. Now, organizations, I can understand when companies have to do some degree of measurement on learning. I can understand that, because ultimately there's a limit for them. Time says money is a bigger resource for them. So they're always thinking about the money that they're investing in learning and whether it's working or not. So I do think that corporates should do some degree of ROI measurement. But the measurement is not, were people happy at the end of the training program? That's a very poor quality of measurement. Or even, did people learn by doing like a quiz at the end of the program? It will tell you something, but it won't tell you much, because it will just take, I think, 5 days for them to forget what they learned in that training program. Right? So I think I heard a very good example of a good measurement for learning is how many of my promotions or need for higher level employee role filling am I doing with internal employees. So am I filling all my growth, the roles that are opening up for growth, senior roles, growth roles? Am I having to hire from outside, or am I hiring from inside? Okay. Saying that is the metric to work on, and learning is just one input towards that. There are other inputs also. But if the focus is that outcome, and as long as that outcome is improving, I continue to invest in these things. So I think that's a good metric. Similarly, as long as your career is growing faster than maybe a benchmark, you can, that's one way. If you are that measuring type and you must measure, pick up one of your classmates who you think is a benchmark to you, and then measure how you're doing in career. But the problem with that, again, as Clayton Christensen wrote in his great book, that's a very stupid way of measuring your life.
Right.
How much salary am I getting vis-a-vis my batchmate? So how will you measure your life is I would say that by Christensen is a kind of book that will change people's views about careers and life. So it's a must read, but also it's a little dangerous, because it's the book that I read which caused me to quit my jobs.
So any specific book recommendations that you would make, which people should use for thinking about career, life, future relevance?
My view about books is, whichever book is available in front of you, or whichever you can get hold of, read it. Okay. I don't kind of, I have some books that I like to read or I have read, but my perspective on this is that read as much as you can, read quickly, read just the initial parts first, see if it makes sense, then read more. Otherwise, dump it also.
Right.
Don't. But again, my time is worth more than the money I spent in buying that book. Okay. Correct. So if I find that after a couple of chapters that this book is not giving me anything more, I will just leave it. Now, my Kindle is filled with lots of books that I haven't completed, even though I've paid for those books, because I may read them later if I feel that my time, I have too much time and nothing else to do. I may browse through some of those books. Even then I'd rather go back and reread a great book than read a book that's not giving me anything new. And most management books, this is a secret I have learned, uh, and I don't know why they do it, but I guess that's how it's structured. Most good management books actually summarize the entirety of the learning in the first 1 or 2 or 3 chapters. The rest of it is expanding that concept or those frameworks into detail.
Right.
So I usually learn the concept or pick up the essence of it by reading the first 20, 30 pages. And then when I need to apply it, when I find myself needing to actually get into the detail of that idea, then I go back and read through the detail, because that's when I can connect the examples of the detail with what I want to do. Because otherwise, reading through that will be just interesting stories. It's of no use to me. So that's my approach to reading it. The other way I deal with books is, again, very good books, most good, again, management books. When they write the books, they usually create one article which is a summary. If they're great books, they're published in HBR. In HBR, an article version will appear before the book is launched, or in any other such journal or a magazine, you'll find an article version of the book. Usually, the article version of the book, about 15-20 pages, gives you again the essence of what the book says. So I'd rather read the 15-20 pages article version and then get back to the book if I need to go deep into that topic.
Correct. Yeah. So, I always keep saying time is the only non-renewable resource. Money is a fully renewable resource.
Money. That's why I'm saying, the sunk cost mindset you should have. Time, there's no sunk. Time is perishable. Money is a sunk cost. You bought that book, gaya. That money is gone. Now, do I spend 15 more minutes, 30 more minutes going through it or not, is the decision to take. Not can I recover my money which I spent on that book.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the last quiz question that we have, and this is about something. So what was launched in India on 15th August 1995 and cost 25,000 rupees a month for corporate clients and 15,000 a month for individuals? And this has got a very close connection with you.
Yeah, thank goodness. At least this one I can answer without hints and without kind of floating around the answer a bit. So it's the internet, which was launched by VSNL, the dial-up internet, which was launched in '95. Of course, I joined the company, or I got associated with VSNL in 2002 when the Tata Group acquired stake in the company, and then I worked there. But it was such an interesting thing. When we had the silver jubilee of that happened, and many of the people who were originally involved in that project and still work, many of them still work in Tatacom. Some of them good friends of mine. They actually wrote some very interesting articles about how this thing happened, and all the jugaad, the fight to make it happen, and some really interesting stories. And they had a group photo of those people now. So yeah, some beautiful memories of that. And of course, later then I've seen and worked on the creation of those thick fat submarine cables that now carry millions of times more data than we used to get in those times.
Right. Yeah. All right. So that brings us to the last section, where we talk about future relevance. So I'll give you some things, terms, and, it's almost like a rapid fire round. So I just want you to comment on what do you think is going to be the future relevance of. Okay. So the first thing is mid-level managers.
For corporates, they play an important role in translating strategy into execution. They are extremely relevant. They don't often play the role they ought to, and that's the biggest challenge that corporates face. But there's a huge role that they can play. They can be the kind of the glue that holds the strategic thought to the day-to-day action. The translation of strategic thought to day-to-day action must happen through mid-level managers. Doesn't always happen, but they could be very relevant.
Okay.
Not, again, depends on the organization and the structure.
Right.
If you move to flat organization structures and network organization structures, the concept of mid-management disappears. So if we are still in the more traditional hierarchy driven structures like we currently are, and I don't see next 5-10 years it disappearing totally, in those organizations mid managers will play.
Okay. Corporate L&D functions.
I think they ought to, and they will become like the IT functions of many businesses. They are responsible for policy and integrating the function with strategy, but outsource the entire development and delivery to specialists. So just like today, and corporate IT department doesn't develop the infrastructure, doesn't maintain the infrastructure, doesn't build the code and everything. That's all outsourced to strategic partners or the cloud. Right? So I think that's what will happen to L&D. So L&D role will become planning, connecting it to strategy, gap analysis, and then certifying, and then qualifying the programs. That's the role that L&D will have.
Okay. What about decision making in the age of AI?
Extremely important. I think what we spoke earlier, human decision making is still necessary. There's so many examples of serendipity. There's so many examples of being able to look at a customer behavior and identify things that any amount of data analysis couldn't ever talk about customer behavior, and that too anticipated customer behavior. So decision making for routine stuff that is very well known can move to AI, but all strategic decision making, particularly those related to customers and markets, customer competition, markets, and also people, will have to be done by people.
All right. And last one, which we did talk about earlier, MBAs or B schools.
Have to, I think a bit like they need to perish before they come alive again. That's my view. But unfortunately, this view has been spoken about for the last 20 years. It hasn't happened. So that disruption force, which has hit many industries, has not hit the MBA school, for instance, yet. Although, let's see in the next 1 or 2 years what we see, because with education itself taking new turn in the US. Let's see what happens. A lot of colleges have been under pressure for a while, but they used to, I think, get subsidized by international students quite a bit. With that reducing in general, right? International students generally reducing as a source of earning for colleges. So maybe some of these programs will see a decline. Now, I'm not saying all B schools are bad. There are some, I think, which are experimenting on the edge. The problem is that by calling themselves B schools and calling it an MBA program, they're confined by the product definition.
Right.
It's a bit like Nano failed because it called itself a car. If Nano was not a car, it could have been a successful product. But you define yourself through some other products setup, you fail,
Right.
even if you want to be disruptive. So I think that's the problem, that anyone else trying to build an MBA program with a difference still has to be within the boundaries of the MBA program that is defined by regulation and that's defined by the incumbent competitors.
Right.
So that's
Yeah. I think that was the last question that I had, Srini. Fantastic. I had a lot of Gyan to pick up from you, and I think I did a good job of it. Thanks for coming onto this. Had a great time.
Thanks, Harish, for this conversation. As I said, usually when good questions are posed to you and you're kind of provoked to think and share, that's when I enjoyed the most. And this was a stimulating conversation. So
yeah. Thank you.
If you want to get into the habit of reading or explore diverse topics that you wouldn't have read otherwise, CTQ Compounds is for you. Compounds are expertly curated by us and are a great way to slip in 15 minutes of reading non-fiction every day. The Future Stack Compound is perfect for anyone with their eye on the future. It gives you a regular dose of relevant info to keep you current and relevant in the future to come. For how you can be a part of a compound, go to ctqcompounds.com. You can also see what our compound members have to say about their experience there. That's ctqcompounds.com.